That thing just want to keep coming back and play again. Shut up, leave me alone. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Hello, and welcome to the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba. And, of course, you know what that means. Every time I play that intro, that means we're going to discuss something that may be a conspiracy. And I've said it before regarding this particular subject that we're going to talk about tonight. It could be the mother that gave birth to the motherlode of all conspiracies. That, of course, is the topic of the flat earth. And my guest tonight is the one who I was introduced to this topic by or through, and that is Mark Sargent. He's been on the broadcast before, so let's go ahead and bring him on. Mark, are you there, sir?
I am there. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
So you've got a program here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network called Strange World, and basically I wanted to have you on to get caught up on what may be happening in this strange and possibly or indeed flat world.
I know. You know, I call it Strange World, but I really should have called it something along the lines of Flat World or Flat Earth or something, because I pretty much have dedicated every show to the Flat Earth thing, and really have had to since I started Flat Earth Clues, which is now just celebrated last month. Its 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
And it's getting really, really nutty out there. I get guests all the time. We're doing more research every day. I have an unlimited stream of emails and phone calls of people giving me tips and things to check into. And it not only does this thing have legs, it just keeps getting bigger and weirder. And it's indeed a strange world.
I was just commenting on the fact that this year is going to be really interesting because last year it was so brand new to most people in the world. I mean, for the vast majority of the 7.5 billion people or whatever, this was so brand new, and most of them had the usual knee-jerk reaction. This is crazy. This is stupid. I'm not, I can't even believe this. Yeah. But I just got a Facebook message from somebody today. I'll read. This is the sort of thing that I'm getting more of, and I'll see if you are too. I can imagine you are, but
sure.
This person said, "Hello, Rob. I need to apologize. About 14 months or so ago, I actually blocked you because of the flat Earth topics. But after a couple of weeks, I decided to look into that subject, and well, it didn't take me long for me to see either. Since then, I still have things stand out to me, like the 3 dead zones of the ocean where planes, ships, and buried cables do not cross. Not sure what that means. Also, tonight on the news, they showed a completely flat horizon as a plane from Alaska to Hawaii delayed its flight to see this, and it's dang awesome. And here's a video clip that he sent me. Anywho, all the best to you from Wisconsin."
Wow.
So are you starting to get...
Oh, yeah. It's very bad. That's funny that you mentioned that, because I got a letter just yesterday. It started out as your standard Strange World fan letter, saying, "Oh, this flat Earth thing, you really, I looked into it and I didn't think there was much to it, but then I spent more and more time in the videos, and now I'm watching all your shows and watching all the clues and digging into everybody's videos when I get a chance." And it was signed by one of my cousins. Aaron Sargent, which was so unbelievable for me. I haven't talked to the guy in 20 years.
Wow.
And because I've been in Colorado for 20 years, so I haven't talked to him in a long, long time. He was on my father's side, so we didn't stay in contact that much. And he's on board. And it was just incredible. It's like to hear that from a family member, unsolicited. And I get those all the time now, where people are saying, they start. You get, I'm sure, the same ones where they say it starts out with, I thought it was a piece of crap. I thought it was junk. And I said, in fact, one of the flat Earth proponents, one of the more recent ones, he said, and it's a good T-shirt. He goes, "I'm a flat earther because I tried to debunk it and I failed." It's true. Everybody starts trying. Everyone. It's this ego thing. We all think we can solve it. It's like, oh, that guy, he doesn't know anything. He couldn't debunk his way out of a paper bag, but I can do it. And it's kind of like the La Brea tar pits. Where one guy goes in. And the other guy goes, "Oh, I'll help you out. I'll help debunk this." Nope, bloop. He's in too, and it's just a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have an internet presence before the Flat Earth Clues?
No, I didn't. My first. I mean, I had one video that I had made, kind of a conspiracy video that I put out in like 2007, 2008. But I had, I think, all of 10 subscribers. when I made my first flat Earth video, and
Yeah.
and you know when I put that thing out there, I thought for sure when I put it out there that some scientist was going to write me or make a response video or just call me on the phone and say, you know what, pfft, you're dead wrong. Here's why you can go back to whatever your normal life was. And here we are a year later, and well, I mean, you know, the view count on YouTube, it was crazy. When I first put the first flat Earth clue out, if you just typed flat Earth into without quotes into YouTube, you got maybe 40,000, maybe 50,000 hits. As of this morning, it was 5.3 million.
Wow.
I know that's a 10,000% increase. And if you put it in quotes, if you put just flat Earth in quotes, which means the words have to be jammed together in the title, it's at about 730,000, which is it's just insane. I mean, you saw what happened at the beginning of this year with the whole BOB thing and the Neil deGrasse Tyson coming on national television and dropping the mic, trying to kill it, and Leonardo DiCaprio going to the Vatican. He's got 15 minutes with the Pope. And what does he spend 2 or 3 minutes on? Oh, let's talk about my flat Earth map that hung above my crib as a child. Here's a picture of it. And here's a book including that picture. How does that happen?
What? I didn't even know about that.
You didn't know that story? Oh, it's great. You gotta look it up when you get a chance. All you have to do, if you're in YouTube, you guys listening out there, type in Leonardo DiCaprio, the Pope, and a flat Earth. And what happened was, it was literally, talk about weird if you believe in coincidences, which I don't. The morning after Neil deGrasse Tyson came on television, and dropped the mic, and that little speech of his, which I almost wanted to smack him. Yeah, I still do want to smack him. But Leonardo DiCaprio, he's at the Vatican talking about climate change. And the Pope's a pretty busy guy, even busier than you, if that's possible. He's got you have 15 minutes to spend with this guy, right? And you've got he's got people taking snapshots. There's one video camera in the world, and he's holding in front of him a book of artwork. And he stops on this one page and he goes, and this is a painting by Hieronymus Bosch. If you've ever heard of the guy, he did a painting series called The Garden of Earthly Delights. And really what it is, it's a domed, flat structure. And Leonardo DiCaprio says, this was hanging over my crib as a child. And he goes, it represents our Earth when we thought that the world was flat. And then he goes into it, and you think it would stop there. And he goes, no. And he goes, to me, it represents the promise of future and enlightenment. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, and the Pope's nodding. He knows this work very, very well. It's a famous piece over in Europe, apparently. And then that was it. And then he spent the last 8 minutes talking about climate change. But that was broadcast all over the news. And nobody touched on the flat Earth argument of it. But it was 12 hours. It was the morning after Neil deGrasse Tyson's thing. So I was just floored. I'm watching all this. I'm going, what's next? What?
Well, I know. That's what's crazy. I mean, I already had built up a pretty good sized internet audience over the last few years because of my other research. Yeah. So when I started looking into this, it stirred up a lot of problems for us.
Oh yeah.
People, they thought I lost my mind, and maybe I did, but a lot of people unsubscribed and blocked me and stuff. But now it's starting to come sort of full circle. With a lot of those people now writing me, dude, I'm so sorry. I was one of those that blasted you and said you're crazy, but now I'm looking into it, and that's what's interesting about this year. Yeah. I think is that. And you've talked about the internet hive mind before, and it's true. Everybody brings their own gifts, talents, and experience to the table when they start looking into this, and then they start applying those things to the subject. And there's a lot of really interesting videos popping up now as people are, adding to the hive mind.
Yeah, nothing is being missed, which is what I love. It was something that I kind of joked about, and I kind of equated it to, people don't know what the hive mind is. It's the same thing. The reason why there's websites out there called moviemistakes.com, which is, there are nerds out there. I hate to pick on you guys if you're listening, but there are nerds out there that will watch a Blu-ray frame by frame, and a copy cup moves from one side of the room to the other without that actor moving it. They're going to write it down and going to put it on a list. Right. And every movie, it doesn't matter what movie, I mean, unless it's like a super short, one scene, one shot, super simple movie. Every movie has mistakes to it because, as we all know, movies are shot out of order. So it's not like they go through the screenplay and shoot every scene. They shoot it cost effective wise. So if you have a bunch of scenes in the desert, you're going to shoot all your scenes in the desert. But the thing is, that makes them out of place. So they got to, you got to rely on the editors to put everything in order. So it only takes, especially when it comes to the space stuff, NASA and the ISS and the moon stuff, it only takes, one nerd in the middle of Nebraska at 3 a.m. to find something wrong with a photo. And he goes, hey, that looks really odd. I'm going to post something about this. And he posts something about it, and the people pick up on it. And then all of a sudden there's a video made out of it, and people start comparing notes. And every week I get new stuff, things I completely missed. Completely missed. And not only the things that they make mistakes that are visual, make mistakes that happen, but a lot of the things that don't happen. Where people say, hey, you know what's missing from here, from this scene? And they'll go on about all this stuff. I'm just going, you're absolutely right. Why didn't I think of this? Because you can't think of anything. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's, I've been thinking a lot about my days when I was a pilot. And this is something I've listened to a guy you had on your show last month, I guess, or whenever it was. Yeah. And he was air traffic. He was a controller. What was it?
There was the air traffic controller meets the flight instructor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it brought back something that you had a guy on there earlier that was the flight instructor guy. Last year, I guess. Yep. And he was talking about gyros, and that's something that's really been messing with me lately. And I've been talking to a few of my pilot friends from when I was in the military. Mm-hmm. And, in the helicopter, it's a lot different because of the nature of the mission that we had. We were sneak and peek is what we called it, but we're flying treetop level. So basically the body of the helicopter's in the trees, and the rotor disc is just right above the top of the tree line. Yeah. So, we're sneaking and peeking, low level, flying very slow. So the curvature or anything of that nature would never play into anything we ever would have even considered thinking about. Yeah. But, airplanes that are flying 500 miles per hour or more, that would be a major issue. And I started playing around, and I've got like 7 videos of various topics, and the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing drove me crazy too. Because I was like, I could just so easily debunk this and that. And so I started all these videos. I don't have time, man, to finish them. But the gyro issue is really messing with me, because I'm like, okay, in an airplane, and I've built some 3D models, and I got this really good model I bought that's already pre-rigged. Mm-hmm. So you turn the controls however way you want to do it, and it moves the ailerons and the elevators and everything for you. Yeah. So it's wonderful. So I'm like, okay, in order for a plane to maintain level with the gyro and the horizon would be to always have that elevator bent down. Yep. But straight and level flight is not like that. No. And that's what's really been messing with me, man. I'm going, I still don't have a clue what's going on in Antarctica, and it's driving me nuts. Well, yeah, that's the big one right now.
That's
the big one is jacking with everybody.
Yeah.
But the flying though, I mean, airplanes, I mean, you'd have to trim the elevator for a constant descent. In order to maintain a steady altitude above the ground at all times. Yeah. In fact, what you brought up is something that I've talked about with I've done 3 or 4 shows on it. The first guy I did was the flight instructor. He owned his own flight instruction company out of Iowa, and taught aerobatic flying as well. Then I also talked to a retired United States Air Force navigator, career navigator. I was so lucky to get that guy. Yeah. And then finally an air traffic controller came out and actually got in with that flight instructor from the first show, and they started rapping back and forth, and I just sat back and let them go. Great show. But thanks. But they all said the same thing, which was, for people that aren't getting it here, because my brother-in-law's a pilot.
is that you spin the gyro up when you're on the ground, and what it does is it says, okay, we are now on level ground. Here's what level is.
Right.
And the reason why you spin it up when you're on the ground is it sets it. Therefore, no matter what the plane does, it's always going to show you what level ground is. And so when you're flying up in the air, where it comes into play is if you're going 500 miles an hour at 30,000 feet or whatever it is, if you're going 500 miles an hour, you're covering distances pretty quick. And so, like, say 15 plus miles, you're going down a couple thousand feet technically over the curve. Therefore, one of two things is either happening. Either, because I've had arguments both ways. So the plane is going to naturally try to gain altitude because the curvature is going to be dropping below you slowly. So either you're going to have to be nosing down every once in a while, ever so slightly to compensate for that, or the argument is, oh well, no, gravity's already pulling your nose down. I'm going, fine. Then you're going to have to nose up every once in a while to compensate for that, because you're not going to tell me that it's got you perfectly balanced between the two. That's not how it works.
Gravity. That's such. All I can think of every time I hear that, it drives me nuts. It's like I can think of Tony the tiger going gravity. Crap, that's pulling the nose down. Because when I'm thinking about today's avionics are mostly computerized digital screens you're looking at. Uh-huh. But when I was flying aircraft that was older than me, Vietnam era aircraft. Yeah. And when you're talking about old school avionics with the altimeter and the attitude indicator with the gyro, that's old school. I mean, you're talking about basically just centrifugal force and, air pressure and pneumatics and things of that nature. Yeah. It's not computerized. So as I'm thinking about the old school avionics, I'm thinking you'd always have to be fighting. The two instruments would always be conflicting. The altimeter would always be telling you, dude, you've just climbed a mile.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be constantly. Yeah, that was an argument somebody threw at me almost in day one, which was, okay, fine. If you want to make the excuse that computers are compensating nowadays, what did they do in World War II? Because they would have had their eyes glued to the altimeter at all times.
Right.
It's like, oh, here I've gained another 500,000 feet. I got to nose down, and even the subtle things. Passengers have taken. Granted, the apps aren't absolute science, but passengers, flat earthers, have taken flights over long distances, east to west or north to south, and they say, we not only does the app say we're not dipping, but you definitely don't feel it. No. Eventually, would you do it every minute? Would you do it every 2 minutes? Eventually, you're going to figure that out. If you're a passenger, it's like, oh yeah, we nose down a little bit. We all know when it happens with turbulence, but if you're doing it like clockwork to compensate for that curvature, it never happens.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you're looking at the math, I mean, this thing's going 500 miles an hour.
Yeah.
At 100 miles, the math says it's 1.26 miles of curvature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your altimeter, what's that? Every 8.5 minutes or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
If you're going 500 miles an hour, you're passing over 100 miles, about 8.5 or so minutes, your altimeter would show an increase of over 5,000 feet. That's pretty freaking huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
To notice and say, okay, well, I've got to trim the elevator down, which would nose the aircraft down. Yeah. And I'm racking my brains going, that just it can't work.
Yeah, and the debunkers will come back and throw the ridiculous stuff. It's like, well, you're saying that every pilot in the world, all commercial pilots are in on this, and it's like, no, the flight instructor, he was the first one to say it because all his friends literally are pilots. Because he asked him, he was not shy about this. He goes, did you ever notice this? And the consensus was because what I mentioned in one of the clues, which was, look, it's the last thing you'd ever think of. You're so busy as a pilot, this. You're so busy as a pilot with your checklists and doing all this stuff that even if you notice something weird, like, the horizon does seem awfully flat today, you would never get to the point. It would be such a massive leap of faith that even if you made that jump, who are you going to go to? You're going to tell the pilots in the bar, it's like, hey, by the way, I was thinking the maps might be wrong and the earth might be flat. They would look at you like you just swallowed a whole bunch of drugs. You'd have no credibility. And so they don't. But most of the time they say it's because they're too busy. They don't notice they don't notice the most obvious thing because it's they're physically just doing too many things. It's the last thing on their mind.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you're a military pilot and you're in a combat scenario, you've got way more important, people shooting at you and things of that nature to be concerned about.
Yeah.
But I can imagine now that anybody out there that's listening that is a pilot has got to start thinking about it, because every flight that I've been on since been introduced to the subject, I've been looking out that window looking for the curve that I would have sworn I saw prior to a year ago.
Yeah.
At 35,000 feet, but it's never there. It's in commercial airline, anybody who still thinks they're behind the curve, the learning curve on this. And that's what's driving me crazy, because I don't know did you see the debate I did with Zach Bauer?
With Zachary? Yeah, I did watch that. That was good.
Oh, thank you.
That was excellent. You did a great job on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was, flat earthers, let's say ball earthers, will tell you ships go over the curve. And I'm like, look, guys, you can't have it both ways. Because Zach's trying to tell us that, well, even the footage I showed at 130,000 feet, it was flat. And he's like, well, you're not high enough. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, dude, you're going to have to go police up all the ballers out there who are convinced they've seen it at 35,000.
Exactly. You bring up two great points there. Not to cut you off, but before you go to break, the ball earth thing, which I try to tell people, because you've probably seen the 3D models, and that is even the weather balloons. Technically, you couldn't get high enough to see the curve. So what you just said, which is, so why is everybody else way below that altitude saying they're seeing the curve? Huh. Because you're not. I put that challenge out there right away. I said, because people say, no, I saw it from the airplane. I go, fine, take a picture, put it on your laptop, and then if you still see a curve after putting a little straight edge up to it, email it to me, and I will put it on air. And nobody, not a single person, has come up against me on that.
Well, but the same people will say that they see ships disappear, allegedly rolling over the ball in less than 10 miles. Yeah. It's like, well, wait a minute, you cannot have it both ways. You know, and this is what really is sticking in my brain. It's why I can't let this subject go. Yeah. And I had a ball and I had a little ship and I rolled the ship over the ball. I said, okay, if the ship rolled over the ball in 10 miles away from the viewer, then for the viewer to see the ship again, he'd have to lift up off the ground and then look down on him. Yeah. But that never, ever happens.
No. Instead, you get a zoom lens, like the, what was it? The P900? Is that what it is? The Coolpix?
Oh, when we come back from break, I got to tell you about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can bring it, but you can bring the ship back.
Right.
You shouldn't be able to bring the ship back. Ship's on the other side of the hill. How are you bringing it back? You can't.
No, you can't. Yeah. Maybe I can get in before the break. I was at Nebraska Furniture Mart. It's a big superstore that they just built right near my apartment complex. Yeah. And they got a really big electronics department and camera section. And so I was there just seeing if they had the cool. I already have one, but it took me forever to locate one, man. I mean, these things are really hard to come by.
Wow.
And it's because it's become the camera. The flat earthers are buying this thing up like crazy. And so when I'm there, the guy's like, oh, so are you a photographer or a filmmaker? I'm like, yeah, a little of both. What do you have? I said, well, I got the Canon, and it was a 70D and the Coolpix 900. And he goes, oh, yeah, we've been trying to get more in here. I've been talking to the Nikon rep, and he's like, we just can't get them in here, man. They're all sold out. And I said, well, I could tell you why, if you're interested in knowing why they might be sold out. He goes, yeah, sure. We'll talk about that when I come back from the break.
All right.
Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba, and tonight I'm talking with Mark Sargent about the flat Earth. And right before the break, we were talking about the Nikon Coolpix P900, and I'm just going to read something right from Nikon's website. It says on the promotional page for this camera, it says, the sky is no longer the limit. With a 2,000 millimeter equivalent focal length, subjects barely visible with the naked eye can fill your frame. And if they don't, dynamic fine zoom and enhanced digital zoom effectively doubles that reach to a 4,000 millimeter equivalent. This thing has an 83 power optical zoom. And, once you zoom into that, there's the zoom kind of catches a stop. And then you could go in even further than that. You press the zoom again, and it will go into 166 power dynamic fine zoom. This camera is, for a small little camera, too, and the lens isn't that – I mean, it zooms – when you zoom all the way in, the lens kind of extends out of the camera probably 4 inches or so. But if you look at other lenses, if you were to try to find a 2,000 millimeter lens or 4,000 millimeter lens to put on a standard DSLR camera, I mean, you got a Canon on this thing. The thing's huge, right? So I was talking with the guy, and he was talking about the difference in the lenses, and those lenses are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to get those lenses. And of course, this camera sells for about $600, and I found a local dealer who happens to be really good friends with a Nikon rep. That's how he was like the only guy that had like 8 boxes of these things. But everywhere I went on the internet, I couldn't find one anywhere. They were sold out everywhere. So I'm talking to this rep at the Nebraska Furniture Mart, and I said, I could tell you why they're all selling out.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, man, it's been driving me crazy. I don't understand why they don't have enough in stock. I said, well, because the flat earthers are buying them up. He goes, flat earthers? What are you talking about? I said, dude, before I go any farther, let me just say your knee-jerk reaction to what I'm about to say is going to be, this is stupid, this is crazy, why am I even listening to this psychopath?
Yeah.
I said, if with that said, would you allow me to continue? He goes, yeah. I said, okay, so I got this Nikon Coolpix, and I've been going up to Lake Louisville, which is a huge reservoir near my house, and there's a good 6 to 7 mile straightaway at one part of it where you could get to one end and look to the other.
Sure.
And I'm seeing stuff, no problem, across that distance, and even beyond that. I mean, there's a water tower that I went on Google Earth to figure out how far it was that I saw on the other side of the dam that I was zoomed in on, and that was 12 miles. And I'm like, man, everything I was seeing, talk about reach out and touch somebody. I mean, you could just reach right out and there it is. And so I'm telling him all this stuff. And then I'm telling him, yeah, if you're flying an airplane, the gyro, and we're talking about that. And this guy's mind is like totally blown. He's just staring at me. He's just blinking at me,
Yeah.
And, then I start talking about the moon and the laser tests. And he's like, oh, my God, I'm going to be down a rabbit trail for the rest of my life. I said, yes, you are.
Yes, you will.
I said, the first thing to do is go on YouTube and look up Flat Earth Clues by Mark Sargent. Oh. And then if you're interested in going into some more research, you can check out my website, and I gave him my YouTube channel. So
nice.
I'll check up on him.
Right on. Yeah, because mine is a gateway. I'm the first one to admit it. It is a gateway drug in the Flat Earth thing. It's the intro, because I realized after I had made them that I didn't actually use any math or any really experiments when I was just defining the clues. It was just these broad strokes. It's like, look at this, and it was really designed for anyone on the street to pick up and just get an overview of what's going on. And then, of course, they do their own research and dig into more videos, and then they don't sleep for 2 weeks.
Right. So. Well, and YouTube is wonderful for helping with that, because if they go to your videos or mine or anybody else's, it's populating all the other videos in the right-hand column there.
Yeah.
And literally, you can spend months now.
Oh my God, yeah. And I have sent, I can't tell you, well, you've probably seen some of the emails that come your way. I can't tell you the amount of people, the very strong Christians, granted, I can hold my own, but when they come to me and they start throwing a lot of chapter and verse at me, I go, there's a website you really should go to. It's called testingtheglobe.com. Go to there, go there and absorb as much as you can, and then, see where it goes from there. Because you've covered so many bases. That website has so much content in it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, it's one big community right now, and everybody.
Oh yeah.
Contribute. I mean, Journalism's been knocking some stuff out of the park.
Oh yeah.
Several others out there too, and now there's new people that I've never heard of before putting stuff up, and it's pretty exciting. But I still, dude, can you help me out with the Antarctica issue?
Which part? The sun, the Antarctic sun.
Well, that's one of them. That's a big one. But the other one I was thinking about was, east-west is no problem, because if you're going east, you just point north off to the left, and go east. However, one of the points that Zach raised in the debate was, and all I could say was, look, I got problems with Antarctica too, so,
Yeah.
But he was saying, people have documented that they have circumnavigated Antarctica in 14,000 nautical miles. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you got other guys that say 60,000, but let's just say that.
Sure.
Let's just say it's true. Let's say they are doing 14,000.
Yeah.
On the ball, forget the east-west argument. Let's say you start going east. But you're not going to have to just maintain an east bearing. What you're going to have to do, though, is maintain a right turn going around if Antarctica is on the bottom of the ball, then you're going to have to maintain somewhat of a right turn. You'll be turning to the right.
Yep.
However, to go east on the circular flat Earth map, you'd have to turn left. So it seems to me that would be an easy enough argument to say, okay, which way were you turning? Were you turning right or left, and which direction were you headed?
Yeah.
And if they're turning right, I mean, what do we do with that?
This is a good point. For me, Antarctica is such a weird paradox, and I don't really know what to do with it either, because there's so many mysterious things. I mean, start off with the treaty, of course, that's locked everything down, which again should not be there. It should absolutely not be there in this day and age. But the other things for me were for me, Antarctica can't be. It cannot be. It's the one thing. And in fact, I'm looking at one of the maps right now. Somebody sent me a painting. They painted the flat Earth model. It's the one thing on the map that absolutely cannot be what is advertised, because if it was, let me back up in this. Let me look at it a different way for you, which is if Antarctica was a continent like they describe, like an Australian-type continent, an island-type continent, then you wouldn't go to such unbelievably extraordinary lengths to keep images of the globe, whether it be snapshots or video. If it was just like that, then the globe has to be real, doesn't it? Because if it wasn't, then what are you saying? I mean, some people have said, okay, then Antarctica is a continent, and actually there's different ice rings that aren't Antarctica, and that there's more land and more pockets beyond that. There's some people that have suggested recently, they said, well, the curvature isn't 8 inches per mile squared, it's like 3 inches per mile squared, which means the planet is actually 3 times larger. I'm sorry, 2 or 3 times larger than it is normally, and you've probably heard that suggestion before, where we're sitting kind of on top of a flattish area on top of a big sphere. I'm going, it's just small thinking. But yeah, you're right. Antarctica, for me, it's the 24-hour sun. I don't know if you saw the David Weiss video that he put out there. It was good. But I don't know if it's going to convince anybody.
No, there's a lot of other things, because he was responding to that Pastor Steve Anderson video, which was another one of those. I was like, oh my gosh, because he came after me in that video, and I'm like, man, I could go after this guy.
Is that the guy that yells a lot?
He's the guy. He's a clone of Jack Shephard from the TV series Lost.
Oh, right.
You ever see? Right. You see Lost?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
He did. He was debunking Tiger Dan's 75 Bible verses.
Nice. Yeah, which even Tiger doesn't debunk anymore. Yeah, we know what happened to Tiger.
What does anybody know?
No, he dropped off the radar entirely. And in fact, to the point where several people have emailed me and said, look, if you know anybody in England, you might want to see if you can find this guy, because he may not be around anymore.
Really? I'm actually legitimately concerned for this.
I am too. He disappears. For anyone that's new to this, Tiger Dan I called him sort of the British version of Rob. You're a big chapter and verse guy, very, very strong Christian. And he made a bunch of videos, including a very good one, 75 Bible, was it verses or just sections? Bible verses that prove the flat earth. And he was into it for a while, and then he said, you know what, I'm so ambitious, I'm going to try to redraw the flat earth map, because I think it could use some tweaking. I think there's something off about it. And 2 weeks into it, he snaps.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, overnight, doesn't do one of those things where he reaches out to people and says, look, I'm having problems with the calculations, or, hey, I'd like your opinion on this. He's like, every flat earther is a liar and a shill and a con artist. And then he dedicated one to you, which was amazing, because you guys were going to do a project together. Yeah. And then he made he goes, I'm going to do a 10-part series against the flat earth. And he only made it to 5, and then nothing but crickets. He's never shown his face again. I don't, neither pro or, you'd think he'd start up his channel and do some more different things maybe, but no, he's never resurfaced.
Well, on the roundtable that I did with you and Patricia Steer and several others, maybe he saw it, I don't know, but I suggested he take a break, take a step back, and read those books: Zetetic Astronomy, Terra Firma, and 100 Proofs. Yeah. Just go read those books because this is what has kept me hooked. Yeah, I don't have a clue what's going on in Antarctica or with the sun. I mean, and that's the big, for me, just about every other argument I have answered to my satisfaction.
Yeah.
Whether anybody else believes me or not, I don't really care. But to my own satisfaction, Coriolis, it's not really an issue for me. The moon, lunar eclipse, all that, those used to be big sticking points for me. They're not.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if somebody can solve the Antarctic problem, I'll be a full blown flat earther.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm going to maintain my title of zetetic agnostic.
Nice.
Well, because I'm still questioning, and the evidence for both hasn't completely swayed me either way. I mean, I will confess that I'm leaning heavily toward the scale of 1 to 10. I'm easily at 8. Right now, in favor of the flat earthers, but
well, and that's just it. The part that because I still get in debates, and you were lucky, by the way. You got Zach to go up against him. You knew him. I mean, you guys were friends, right? Yeah. Or still are friends. Yeah, you were lucky. I get to go up against people that think I'm a raving lunatic. that last guy I did, oof, that was rough. The one where Richard Hoagland backed out, and I ended up going up against his substitute, who ended up just got out of prison for fraud. Fantastic. That was Brian Dunning. So we did that. We did it on Dark 30 Radio, where it was supposed to be a 2-on-2, where David Weiss and I were in the same corner, and then Mark D'Antonio and Richard Hoagland were in the other.
Wow!
And then all of a sudden we start up, and Richard Hoagland's a no-show. He didn't even call. And so they said, okay, we're just going to have you go up against D'Antonio. I was going, okay. So I get in there, and he didn't have a chance because he hadn't done his homework. So he just got thrashed. And then a guy named Brian Dunning comes in, and we sort of do these tag team thing where I talk to him for a while, and then David Weiss talks to him. And we look him up. I was going, who is this guy? I look him up, and he had just got out of prison for fraud. He had swindled eBay, and he had a debunking, still does, some skeptic channel, some debunking channel. I was going, really? Can you still do a debunking channel where you're trying to accuse people of fraud when you just got nailed for fraud? I don't know. It was just me. But anyway, what I was getting at was the debates. You were lucky when you got to do your thing, and I just completely lost my train of thought. What were you talking about? You were going against Zach and something about Antarctica. Yeah. Here's the problem, where people they say, you got to show us proof of a flat Earth, and I go, no. The burden of proof is still on the globe because you should have so much of it. Then that's where everyone keeps forgetting. That's where it's downplayed, and nobody's realizing the gravity of this. No play on words there. Gravity, which is that again, no play on words. I'm doing this on purpose now. Where the flat Earth and the globe Earth should not be on the same level playing field. It should not be there because there should be all this evidence on the globe side. So like you were saying, you're 8 out of 10 positive, and there's these nagging things, but that's why it keeps resonating, because there's so many things, and I've tried to boil it down as best I can. There's so many things that science cannot answer with math. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. It's like, fine, you want to talk about trigonometry and the curvature. It's like, tell me about the pictures of the Earth from space using math that aren't there. Tell me about the movies that aren't there. And in fact, you've made, I get people like Max Malone. You probably heard of that guy. He likes finding stuff that isn't there, and he was the guy that said, that first said, why aren't there any footage of an astronaut turning around with a camera running? And then he says, wait a minute. Why is there no footage of anything leaving orbit or coming back? And he goes, on top of that, it's like, and then another guy chimed in and says, hey, wait a minute. Why isn't there any footage of any astronaut in an airlock when the door opens? And they walk outside. Why, we see that in movies every single day, but it's not there. So it's, again, there's so many things that science is having a hard, which is why the science keeps growing and growing, because science is nervous. I mean, if you're a scientist, yeah, you might be able to answer a few things, but there's so many questions you can't answer that if you're a scientist, why even step into the ring? Why do it?
Well, that's what's been really disturbing to me as I was looking through this is okay, you got people like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
And he'll come right out and tell you that he's a theoretical scientist, a physicist, a theoretical physicist. Yep. And science today is almost exclusively theoretical. I mean, especially when it comes to cosmological science. I mean, it's all based on theory. And if you did you see The Principle?
Everyone keeps telling me to see it. I have not seen all of it. I've seen bits and pieces. I've got it down. They keep ripping it down from several places. It was on YouTube for a while, but now it's not.
Just bite the bullet and pay the $6.
All right, I'll buy it. But you keep saying it's worth it. It is worth it. Right?
It is totally. I mean, of course, it's not a flat Earth documentary.
No.
However, it just obliterates the heliocentric model, and
because it's scientists that are going on there saying, yeah, the universe has some. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, they're scientists, but there's a great quote in there by Michio Kaku.
Yeah.
And he says, usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. That is a 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science. And they're admitting it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a 1 with 120 zero. That's how far off they are. That's why they have to create ad hoc things like dark matter. And they're always, I mean, math is funny because if you try hard enough, you can make math fit whatever you want.
Exactly.
And that's what he's saying here.
Yeah.
It's like, all this theoretical science, it's like, well, okay, what if we got back to zetetic science where you proceed with inquiry and investigation, intangible visual, evidence, empirical evidence that is repeatable.
Yep. You're absolutely right. And yet they'll still say things that I could go on a rant about science for a long time, but I'll give you some highlights, which is that they expect us to believe the coincidences, that they're all coincidences. Like the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's also 400 times closer than the sun. Therefore, they line up almost perfectly to each other. That the fact that the moon never shows its backside. It only shows us one side. And you know how degrees and, if it's off even by half a degree with that rotation syncing up with us, then eventually, in the course of even a year, we're going to see the other side of the moon. That never happens? Really? It's locked in like the Death Star? Really? There's so many astronomical things out there that science immediately looks at us and says, oh, yeah, they take it for granted. I still want to shake Neil deGrasse Tyson by the shoulders and say, why doesn't the double slit experiment bother you in any way, shape, or form? They speak of it like it's actual science. It's like, science? That's magic right there. It's like, wow, tree doesn't fall, a tree falls in the forest and you can't, if no one's there to see it, does it make a sound? No, because the tree's not there. Science has no problem with this?
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Have you ever watched, you're talking about the double slit experiment. Have you watched What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yeah, I have.
That's where I first heard about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And people that haven't heard of the double slit experiment before, look it up when you get a chance. Won't go into particles and waves that much. But basically what they're showing through science is that some things do not manifest themselves unless there's someone there to watch it.
The observer. That's
and scientists talk about it so matter of factly. And I'm looking at them on screen. I'm going,
what?
I'd develop a facial tic if I was a scientist and found this out. that the results change if you're looking at it. It's like a movie thing. Nothing happens unless the camera's on it. And they try it with a remote camera. It's not just like a person looking at it. It's if a camera look. It's the old joke in the movies, and that is nothing happens until if you have your back to it, nothing you turn around and nothing's happening. Right, and it's just maddening. I just drives me insane.
Well, and that's what as people are starting to go out and do their own tests. That's why you're getting these converts out there going, "Well, I used to think you were crazy and I blocked you, but no."
Yeah,
and anybody who's going up in an airplane that was so convinced before that they saw the curve, now they're actually looking for it and going, "Well, shoot, it's not there."
Yeah, yeah, and what you were saying about converts, the one I hate to say this, but the one really unsatisfying thing about the whole flat Earth theory is that is that when converts turn, there's no apologies.
Yeah.
That's the part that bugs me. It's like, because you'll see the debunkers out there. I mean, we've got the attention pretty much of just about, especially after the BOB thing happened and Neil deGrasse Tyson thing happened. Even the hardcore debunkers came out there, but some of the smaller ones, what they do is they'd make a series of videos. Flat Earth is dumb, Flat Earth is stupid, Flat Earth is ludicrous, and then by like the fourth or fifth one, it's like, hey, Flat Earth, that's not a bad idea. So there's no middle ground. It's like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah.
And there's no apologies, and it's kind of like they're watching the parade happen in front of them. They're protesting it. You guys suck. And then all of a sudden, they just throw down their sign and jump in the parade with you. And I see this, and I understand it because I was one of them. Yeah. But it's so unsatisfying because you want the people to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was wrong. But you're lucky. Because you got attacked, and some people have apologized to you personally, but they don't apologize for the movement.
No,
it's like.
Well, and that's what is it? I forgot what the 3 stages are now.
5 stages of acceptance.
Well, no, that's the 5 stages of grief that lead to acceptance. But there's one that's similar to that. It's a truth is first rejected and mocked and whatever.
Oh, yeah. Then it's heavily debated and then it's accepted. Yeah.
It's accepted as self-evident.
Yeah.
It's like, well, of course we know that. Well, wait a minute. I've got all the Facebook messages and emails that says it wasn't so self-evident, and you guys were going psycho.
What was interesting was when I was, because I've watched the debunkers change. Really, honestly, when the BOB thing happened, it changed the whole tone of the debunkers, because then it was mainstream. Everybody from Time Magazine to MTV to I think you may have heard. I mean, I had a friend call me, and she's got her PhD. She called me from a bar in Indiana, and she goes, after the Neil deGrasse Tyson dropped the mic, and she goes, you're never going to guess what I'm looking at on NPR. I go, I bet I can. She goes, do you have anything to do with this? I go, yes, I do. But it got so much exposure that the debunkers really changed gears. And there was a debate that fell through just recently. You probably didn't know about it, where Jeranism was challenged and Odd TV. And
right, yeah, I was.
You were contacted?
I don't. Was it the guy?
Right. He mentions you in passing, the Vigilant Christian.
Yeah.
300,000 subscribers. Yeah,
I'm going to be at a conference with him.
Oh, cool.
We're both keynote speakers at a conference in May up in Evansville.
Good for you! Fantastic. He'll probably be on board. Well, so you saw the challenge that he put out there.
I did. Yeah.
And then it failed. And then the whole thing collapsed. And it failed because the debunkers now have changed their tune. They're not actually trying to debunk. Well, I mean, a few of them are, but the hardcore ones, they're not trying to debunk flat Earth anymore. They're basically just saying that it's all a complete psychological operation, and that everybody's in on it. Everybody's on the same team, like Matt and you and I and Eric and Jared. We all have weekly meetings,
right?
And we plot this all out, and that's where it's like, really, that's where it's going now. That the debunkers having a hard time because once it hit mainstream, you have to change your tone. It's because now you're thinking, okay, if mainstream's covering this, then there's got to be something more to it, which means these guys are in league with something else. And I watching that and going, wow, the debunkers having such a hard time.
Well, and unfortunately, there's a little bit of that going on within the flat Earth community too, where people are pointing, you're a shill, I'm a shill, you're a this, I'm a that, and whatever, because we don't have the exact same model as they do, or some of them, you and I both subscribe to the dome idea.
Yeah.
Others don't, so therefore we're disinformation agents or whatever.
Yeah. It's that Life of Brian. If anyone knows what we're talking about here, it's the Life of Brian, the Monty Python movie, where the guy drops his shoe. Brian drops his shoe, and people are looking at the shoe and trying to find the meaning of it. And they 4 religions are formed like right away. It's like, we must collect shoes. No, we must wear one shoe. We must hold the shoe up, and they're all trying to find meaning in the shoe. It's like he just dropped his shoe. But yeah, that's what happens with flat Earth. Everyone's going in the right direction, but the tangents are developing so quickly, and they change almost weekly. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep focus at this point. Just trying to keep making it down the path and not listen to the shill talk too much.
Yeah, it's enough to drive you crazy. It's like, really, guys, I mean, we're already taking enough flack just for looking into it, but now we're going to shoot each other? I mean, I've said it before, Christians have the only military that assembles its firing squad in a circle. Unfortunately, it looks like the Flat Earthers are doing the same thing.
Yeah, a little bit. All
right, we'll talk about that when we come back. And welcome back to the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba. For the second hour of the broadcast, I'm talking with my guest, Mark Sargent. And during the break, Mark sends me a little message in the Skype chat. Check out this short video. And he sent me the video clip that he's got up on his YouTube channel. It's titled Leonardo DiCaprio, Pope Francis, and the Flat Earth Picture. It's a 1-minute video, 50 seconds or so. You got to check it out. That's crazy, dude.
I know. I know. I honestly, you get those surreal moments when that video, because I was already high as a kite from watching Neil deGrasse Tyson the night before, but that next morning I'm watching. Oh yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, yeah, and he's up for an Oscar this year, won it of course, and he's talking to the Pope. And when he starts talking about this stuff, I had to subtitle it and put it out on YouTube just to. And it got some traction. There's other people that've got more, but it was amazing. What is he doing there? Why would you bring this up?
Okay, now this may tie into some. Did you see the first Flat Earth X-Files video I produced?
Was that the one where the Pope went to Cuba?
Well, yeah, the Pope goes to Cuba to meet Patriarch Kirill. Yeah. Russian Orthodox Church. Yeah. They have this little meeting in Cuba. Then the Pope goes to Mexico, but the Patriarch goes to Antarctica at the same time as this huge fleet, apparently, that Putin had sent down there. And, of course, there's all this weird speculation about some kind of Ark of Gabriel going on or what. I don't know what to make of it. Is it disinformation? Is it tabloid fodder? What is it? I don't know, but that's just – it's crazy. It is a strange world, man. Yeah.
Do you believe in coincidences? Because that was so weird. Yeah. It's like, why would he? It's like, okay, I just met with Pope Francis. I'm going to go to Antarctica and go to that one tiny little church. Yeah. You knew that was just a photo op. Where did he really go? Yeah. What was he doing down there?
At the same time, this Russian fleet of research, quote unquote, research vessels are going down.
Yeah, and then didn't you sort of make the I don't know if you made a reference. It was your video or somebody else's. It probably was yours. That stampede that happened last year.
Yeah, these are all the things. Yeah, that was showing all these strange coincidences. I mean, I was able to vet just about everything in the story except for the Ark of Gabriel.
Of course.
I mean, I don't know what how do you vet that? But yeah, I mean, the plasma bolt or whatever and of course the mainstream said it was a stampede that killed all these people. But
yeah, and they also made it seem like it happens all the time. It's like, oh yeah, human stampedes, it's not uncommon. I'm going, really? Because this is the first time I've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a big deal because didn't they lose like 1,000 people?
No, it was like 4,000 people.
Holy smokes! Yeah. How do you trample 4,000 of your own? I'm sorry. I mean, we in America we're not. We don't have no shortage of like rock concert trampolines, but 4,000 people. Where are they? What are they running from exactly?
Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
Well, did you see? There's another video that came out recently called "Flat Earth Jesuits and the Global Conspiracy."
Yeah,
that one.
I think you commented on that one. I remember seeing your comment.
Yeah, I did. That was put out by a Seventh-day Adventist, and I'm going, okay, wow. I mean, this person really did some good research, and they're pulling up all the stuff on how he's blaming the whole ball Earth and heliocentric model on the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. So if you pair all the stuff that we're talking about up with this oddly enough, this actor Leonardo DiCaprio showing this picture and saying that he believes this is represents hope in the future or whatever he said.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, represents the promise of future and enlightenment.
Yeah.
Why would that painting of a flat domed Earth have anything to do with the promise of future? And then he said at the end, he goes, "And I know that you feel, your views are the same." It's like,
yeah.
How would he know this? And of course, again, I loved the little body language, which you probably didn't see right away, where the Pope knew exactly what this painting was, and he knew that it opened it up. The front domed picture of the Earth, because the artist was very clever. It was a domed structure that literally the painting opened up like a double-sided window.
Yeah.
And inside was the Garden of Earthly Delights, which was, it is amazing to me. I was, at that point, I was going, okay, what's next? What at this point? I don't think anything can surprise me.
That is so bizarre, man. I'm still sitting here looking at this going, what?
I know. And then he wins the Oscar a month later. It was his first Academy Award, and you couldn't get really. I mean, he is about as A-list as they get, and it's like, and I knew that he was kind of an environmentalist. He's a cause guy. He's done other little documentaries about financial stuff, and I don't know if it did GMOs and stuff like that, but. If you're going over there to talk about climate change, I know you're shaking hands. Why are you bringing that up? And then you're talking about, it's like, oh yeah, not only was that painting you're showing to the Pope, it was what was hung above my crib. It's like, really? That's kind of an odd thing to put above your crib as a child. I don't know many.
Most people have the heliocentric solar system.
Yeah, stars and the moon's really going to put Hieronymus Bosch, because his depictions of hell are not exactly for the light-hearted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of things eating things.
Right.
So yeah, and the Garden of Earthly Delights, it's not exactly pornographic, but it's a lot of naked people. So again, I saw that, and so at that point I knew, sort of like. Rick's video where the lightning bolt goes off next to his house when he starts looking at flat Earth. I knew I was going, okay, we're entering a new stage here, where now it's not like people are laughing, and they're not laughing you out of the room anymore. They're getting what you said. They're getting into this angry debate mode, where they're not just waving you off and saying, "Oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not even going to talk about it." Now it's like, okay, I'm willing to talk about it, but I don't have a lot of kind things to say.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
Okay, so if he's a cause-oriented guy and he's going over there, and how many times I did a video on this a while back. I started to notice that when you see political figures using the term flat Earth, always as a derogatory term, it was almost exclusively applied to the climate change issue. You had Obama, you had
the Secretary of State. Everyone says the same thing. It's like
guys. If you don't buy into climate change, you must be a flat earther.
Exactly.
And now is this double speak? I mean, what are we looking at here? Yeah.
But why bring it up? And why have it on camera? It's kind of like the thing where, because I believe in ulterior motives, and I still believe there's other things happening behind the scenes here with this, no question. Because like Neil deGrasse Tyson, he went on several shows, CNN and Bloomberg, where he was talking to people on camera, and you probably saw some of this, where he was saying that science. If you're going to talk about the globe with science, you should not be giving equal time to the flat earthers.
Right.
And I'm going, why are you saying this on camera?
Yeah.
Why are you not saying this in a closed room with producers behind closed doors? The last thing you're going to do, in fact, if you're going to say it, it's fine. You want to say it to the host, make sure the camera's not running. Why are you waiting until you know you're live and then bringing this up? Unless they're putting putting the seeds out there to where people, that's where I think it's going, where people they're trying to get the whole idea of flat Earth into people's heads for whatever reason, whatever's coming down the pipe. It's just what it feels like to me.
It's going to be an interesting year.
If last year was any indication, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, for example, right now we're at 5.3 million hits on relevant things on YouTube. That is double what it was 4 months ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I predicted, that was one of my predictions of this year for 2016. I would go, oh, it's going to hit 5 million before the end of the year. It hit it on March 7th. It's like, okay, well that happened a lot quicker than I thought it was going to. What's next? Who's good? I even predicted at one point, I hate to say this, but a lot of our predictions already come true. But the one I called was, I hate to bring it up the name because I don't vote. But that was, I bet that one of the political candidates will bring it up when they get into the finals. And I think Donald Trump will bring it up. And I don't know why I said that, but if it comes true, it will not surprise me.
That will be really interesting.
Yeah, if open your mind, because you can bring this up, you can spin it a certain way, saying, well, the flat earthers, they're open to anything, and that's what America should be too.
Right.
One of those lines. But you probably saw, or maybe you didn't. I know, again, you're super busy, but that thing that happened a week ago, where the admiral of the Pacific Fleet admiral says that China, anyone thinks that China isn't taking over the South China Sea, believes in the flat Earth. And it was very quoted. I mean, that was like the line that everybody, but that was, our United States admiral saying that. They're doing it kind of like a drumbeat. Every so many weeks, they keep putting in there. Tila Tequila. All of a sudden, her Twitter account disappears. But she's not known as Tila Tequila anymore. She's known as Flat Earther Tila Tequila.
Oh, brother, it's like Prince, the artist formerly known
as Prince. Oh, and B.O.B. Here's another one for you. Talk about strange stuff. So B.O.B. does his thing, right? And I mean, you can't put a price tag on the amount of press he got. By making a thing and using a full 1 minute soundbite of Neil deGrasse Tyson in your song, which you give away for free, right? And then everybody's covering it, and he doesn't do a single interview about it. Not one. And then all of a sudden, quietly, only 3-4 days ago, he announced he's going on tour. Nice. He released tour dates. Now, he didn't call it the Flatline Tour or the Flat Earth Tour or anything like that. We don't even know if that song is going to be in his playlist when he goes on tour, but it's a national tour. So, and he of course also is being mentioned as he's not B.O.B. anymore. He is Flat Earther B.O.B.
Yeah, it's going to become the new moniker for everybody.
It's for better or for worse.
Somebody in the chat room just posted something. This person, Drone Free Zone, posted a picture. They turned a typical flat map of the Earth, like a Mercator map type thing. Yeah. Turned it on its side so that Alaska is like facing towards the ground, and South America is facing towards the right side of the picture. Yeah. And he says, I just realized that the America sideways looks like a duck. And wow, sure enough, it does. That's just crazy.
Hey, that reminds me, by the way, there was a letter. I only think I remember mentioning this once, but it was the hive mind catches all these weird stuff, and they said, when you look at the Mercator map, it's really strange. And they go, isn't it odd that all the pointy, elongated ends, they're all pointing down? And I go, that's really weird. He goes, you think I'm kidding? He goes, take a Mercator map and turn it upside down, because we're all so used to the way it's shaped. He goes, it's all of a sudden all these jagged things are pointing up. Nothing's pointing the other direction. He goes, but if you put it in a flat model in an AE map, then they're not pointing down anymore. They're all pointing out.
Yeah, like spokes on a wheel.
Like spokes on a wheel. And I was going, you've already caught that, but I thought that was so interesting and so overlooked because it looks natural on an AE map, but it doesn't. It looks completely unnatural if you take a Mercator map and just turn it upside down. Or take a globe and flip it up to where Antarctica is supposedly on the top, and then look at it. The continents look really, really even stranger than normal.
Speaking of the globe, I've got one sitting right here next to me, and I was thinking about the Antarctic sun. Yeah. And if anybody has a globe that's tilted at the 23.4 whatever degrees, and you shine a flashlight on it in a dark room or something like that, or have somebody else do it, shining straight onto it, you'll notice that a large percentage of Antarctica would never see the sun for 24 hours a day. You would only see it at like 2 or 3 locations, and those are the indents, like the Ross Ice Shelf.
Yeah.
Those would be on the ball, assuming the ball was real. Those would be the only areas that could theoretically see the sun as the Earth is rotating 24 hours a day. But a lot of Antarctica would not. So even that argument that you couldn't make a blanket statement. In other words, saying if you're anywhere in Antarctica, you'll see the sun for 24 hours, because there's huge portions that you would not be able to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, Antarctica, again, is such a weird place, and we're still trying to figure that out. But of course, the thing that people keep forgetting is, why haven't you figured out Antarctica out? Well, the biggest reason is because we don't have unlimited access to Antarctica. It's the only place in the world that you can't just roam freely. You got to file all these permits. They know exactly where you are. And as far as the interior goes, I'm not convinced that you can go very far.
You know, I've asked, there was a guy that I met at a conference who was stationed in Antarctica for 3 years. He worked as a cook for Raytheon. And
oh, right. Raytheon, they used to have the contract, and now it's Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, now the entire time that you were down there, 3 years, did you or anybody else that you knew of or had heard about while you were down there ever go further inland than 800 to 1,200 miles? And he said, no, nobody that I know of ever went more than 800 to 1,200 max.
Yeah.
I have yet to find somebody that's gone 800. And I based that number based looking on Google Earth and going from the shallow parts of Antarctica toward the alleged pole, geographical location.
Yeah.
And from I think the shortest distance was like 800, but on average it was 1,000 to 1,200. From the longer areas, and nobody that he knew had, and I have yet to find somebody that has.
Yeah. You know what I thought? You maybe you remember that interview or not? When I had the United States missile instructor and the United States Navy electronics chief talking to each other, and they were comparing notes. Again, I just sat back and let them roll. Where they were saying they were comparing notes and saying, isn't it strange that when you're in the military, as you know, they have bulletin boards. Oh, there's assignments here and here and here, and you could choose, wherever you want, European theater or Pacific Rim, because there was never any openings ever in Antarctica. He never, from the Navy's point of view, never saw it, and that's when they were kind of speculating. It's like, it's got to be the Air Force. It's got to be the Air Force that has the assignments, but they weren't even sure. But they met nobody. Nobody they ever met ever was assigned down there.
Well, part of the Antarctic Treaty is that you're not supposed to have a military presence, or at least you're not supposed to have a military base.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, you have scientific bases, but I mean, the United States has a base. McMurdo is
Lockheed Martin and Raytheon's a pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. If Lockheed Martin is down there, and they were preceded by Raytheon, and they're our biggest, two of our biggest military contractors. Yeah, it's a safe bet that we've got a lot of something down there. In fact, what is Lockheed Martin running the show for down there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you probably heard the just a little side note. The flight instructor out of Iowa, he said that what's really interesting is that all the GPS latitude and longitude data is controlled. They're all on Lockheed Martin servers. Lockheed Martin runs the GPS, all the GPS data. I was going, why wouldn't the U.S. government? It's a DOD. I mean, I know they can subcontract it out, but I would think, you put that up to the highest bidder, really? And Lockheed Martin is running it? I know. They are the military. I get that. Boeing and General Dynamics and, yeah. But.
Well, the satellite issue is another, when we start talking about GPS and things like that. And, I was like watching that same guy that a lot of us have used from NASA that's talking about the Van Allen radiation belts. It's like, we got to go through it. We have to solve that problem first. But what not a lot of people caught this. In that same video, he says that when Orion goes over the Indian Ocean, we lose contact.
Yeah.
And I started tracking that back, and they had the same problem with the space shuttles, and they had the same problem with the Apollo missions. Everybody, whenever they go over the so-called southern hemisphere, they lose contact. It's like, well, wait a minute. If we've got satellites, thousands of satellites, and supposedly, all around the globe, why is NASA losing their own ships?
Yeah, exactly. The DOD is one thing, but which I still think is inexcusable. But yeah, NASA actually losing contact. You can route. This full well. I mean, if the satellites are up there, you have permission to do anything you want. You can bounce off of anything. You're not going to have any blind spots.
Yeah, I mean, if NASA's got blind spots, NASA.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big freaking problem.
Yeah. Yeah. The more people, by the way, the more people start looking into the satellite stuff, the more it gets ridiculous. I mean, I mean, Brian Mullins did a wonderful
say that he just
the thing on the thermosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been talking about that too. I looked up that same graphic that he held up to the screen that shows the temperatures and how they kind of zigzag and then skyrocket.
Yeah.
Early in my investigation, it's one of the first things I looked into. I'm like, wait a minute, because for many people, just getting into this subject, 9/11 is a even before Flat Earth Clues, coming to the conclusion that 9/11 was an inside job for many is that gateway that opens your mind to, okay, we've been lied to a lot.
Yeah.
And you start to lose a pretty huge chunk of your cognitive dissonance when you finally go down that path.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I'm going, okay, wait a minute. We were told that 3 buildings basically melted. That the steel had so weakened from 1800 degree temperatures of jet fuel that the steel weakened, which steel melts at like 2500 degrees or something like that.
Yeah.
And, we've got aluminum satellites up there in the thermosphere that gets up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, Brian kept talking in Celsius, but putting in terms that most Americans understand, that's really hot and and
really warm.
Like he's going, okay, but I mean, I loved watching him because he's very calm. And I guess he's got a physics background. I mean, he's. What?
He specializing in structural engineering. He knows a lot. He's very, very smart.
Yeah, and here's this is why I love watching him, because you can see an innocence in his intelligence, where he's going, I know this, but then I also know this. And this can't make that they don't work together.
Yeah, and he's young enough that you can tell his education is still in his head, where he's like, look, we are told this, and this doesn't match up with what they're also telling us it's up there. About satellites should be melting. Not to mention, we're talking about the same satellites that we don't have pictures of.
Right.
That satellites that don't take pictures of each other, and the ISS never apparently flies by any of them, even though they do time lapse things where they circle the globe all the time. And then my favorite, which again people overlook, is you see the news, because I mentioned this because mainstream news bring us, oh yeah, by the way, we have annual meteor showers where they say, oh yeah, the Perseus meteor shower, this meteor shower, and it's going to come in from this sort of angle, it's going to be from this hour till this hour, or it's going to run all night. And meteor showers are coming from outer space, and they're coming into our atmosphere, and it looks like blanket coverage. I mean, it's the skyline, and it's covering a huge amount of the sky, and nobody's concerned about their satellites up there. You know
what? Has anybody done this? Has anybody tracked the path of the International Space Station during the various annual
meteor showers? That's a great question. That's an excellent.
Okay, everybody out there listening, this is step 2.
Find out where the ISS was.
Find out where the alleged path that it's supposed to be on, and then where the meteor showers are coming in.
Yeah, because
that'd be a huge problem.
Yeah, and that'd be a great news story. It was like ISS has to stay ahead of the meteor shower. I mean, good Lord. I mean, that was the whole premise of gravity.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Well, yeah, why not? And they never ever part of that's one of my arguments anyway about the interior ISS shots, which is oh yeah, by the way, we're up in space, but we never wear our spacesuits. We run around in khakis and polo shirts and socks. Why no shoes? Why no shoes? And they never ever are concerned. It's like one micrometeor and you guys are done. You don't have time to do anything. And no one seems nervous about getting into their suits about anything. By the way, did you catch? I know you catch quite a bit that George Bush blue screen thing.
Oh yeah.
That
was weird. I don't know that it's conclusive, but
no, it's not conclusive. But at the same time, it made me revisit the whole special effects thing, because a lot of people are saying, well, blue screen isn't used anymore; it's all green screen now. And when I was looking up, and I'm old enough, to remember, the blue screen, because we all started out. For those youngsters out there, we started out in blue screen. Yeah. Where Star Wars and close, we started out with blue screen, but then they figured out that green was actually a better color. You could get brighter colors out of it. But what I didn't realize was this blue screen is still used a lot.
It is.
because you use it for stuff that's nighttime stuff. If you don't care about super bright colors like Avatar, then you go with blue screen. And if also it's cheaper and you can color correct on it very, very easily, or a lot easier than green. And
because like I do this type of video editing and stuff like that, and one of the reasons they went to green is because because a lot of people wear blue jeans, blue shirts, they have blue eyes, and depending on the sophistication of your keying device. I mean, you could end up with people that don't have eyeballs, because their blue eyes get keyed out, or their pants, whatever. I mean, unless you have a good keyer that you can really adjust for exact color temperatures and frequencies and stuff. But you're right. If you have the ability to do it with blue screen, because a lot of times you end up with an edge that you can kind of feather a little bit. And this is the problem with that the transit GIF that was put out of the moon that was going across the Earth. Mm-hmm. If you remember that one,
yeah. I remember that one well because I remember you were looking at that one really hard.
And I debunked myself on that one, only on part of it.
Only
part of it. The rest of it, there's still plenty wrong with that.
There's tons wrong with that.
Tons wrong with it. And one of the things that another guy had done a zoom in on it is that it apparently that had a green background. The moon was keyed out. The green was keyed out because there's a green fringe that is common. That if you don't feather properly or adjust your attenuation settings for your keyer when you're doing it, that you'll leave artifacts like that. And that had telltale green artifacts on it. That blue is a lot easier. Obviously, if it was a blue background, then it would blend with the blue earth in the background. You know what I mean? Even if you had a little bit of bleed off.
Yeah. It was, and again, I know you're going to break. By the way, that blue screen background that was in Tim, because that's chroma. I mean, this. It seemed to me like it was chroma blue.
It looked like it. Yeah.
It wasn't digital blue, but it was definitely chroma blue. And
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba, for the final half-hour segment. I'm talking with my guest, Mark Sargent. And right before the break, we were talking about chroma key problems and satellites and things of that nature. Mark, in the debate that I had with Zach, saying, anybody could do this. You could go out. He was using this night vision goggle sight finder from one of his rifles or whatever.
Sure.
Saying you could take night vision goggles and go out and you could look up satellites and then look up in the sky and see stuff. But yet, I have yet to see anybody who has zoomed in really close and tight on the moon that has ever seen a silhouette of a satellite cross their lens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When it comes to satellites, I was on the fence for a while, like you, on some things. And then I started remembering what I had looked at over the past so many years. Way before Flat Earth, so we'll go back 6 years ago. I watched some conspiracy thing, and the guy, it was a British guy. He was talking about UFOs and stuff like that. And he goes at the very end. He said the only interesting thing I thought of the entire interview. He goes, you want to see some interesting stuff? He goes, get some night vision, go outside, and start looking up. Yeah. I go, all right, I'll take that dare. Why not? And so I shopped around on Amazon and I went through, 4 or 5 different pairs and finally settled it on a relatively inexpensive set of night vision optics. I'm not endorsing them. I'm just saying that's what worked best for me. Because you don't want just a monocular. Binoculars is best. And most of them are made in Russia anyway. I don't know why they cornered the night vision market, but they do. So I start going out there, and that's the first thing I thought of. The first time I turned those things on, it was really like a whole other world, because the sky, you're looking up at it with your naked eyes and everything looks, fairly tame. You look up there in night vision and the sky is just crawling with stuff. It looks like the future in some cases. There's all sorts of stuff buzzing around there. And the very first thing I said was, oh yeah, there's so many satellites. I remember calling up my sister and saying, "Hey, there's a whole bunch of satellites up here." And then I go out the next day, and I'm watching them, and I'm going, "Yeah, it's kind of boring, just a bunch of satellites." And then I watch some of these satellites start doing things, start making different directions and slowing. One very vividly just slowed down, looked like it was lost, then made like a left-hand turn, and then really accelerated in speed and went ballistic all silently. Watched them flying in formation, doing all sorts of fun stuff. And then I started going, okay, wait a minute, what am I looking at exactly? Because everything we've always been told about satellites, these things weren't doing. And then I started, now I hate to be glib when people ask me this question. They go, what about satellites? I go, really? Who told you there were satellites? The same guys that told you about Apollo? Because it's the same people. And if it is, I mean, is it possible that the whole reason they even brought up the whole term with Sputnik? In fact, there was a video that just came out today on YouTube where they were saying that Sputnik may have been the first space age false flag, where they told us about it, but there was actually nothing up there. They just got people used to it. So if they saw something moving across the sky, because everybody knows you can see some of these with your naked eye, but when you see them, what's the first thing everyone says? Oh, it's a satellite. Well, how do you know that? Well, because it is. It's just
but when people aren't thinking this through though, because we say we see, and I've seen stuff too, and
sure,
would have said the same thing. But we say, and I'm including me in the word we say we see satellites with the naked eye.
Yeah.
Yet we haven't thought that through, because those things are like the size of a school bus or smaller.
Exactly.
And they're how far away? And we're claiming that we're seeing them from that far away.
Yeah, 100 miles would be what, 500,000 feet, 500,000 feet up. Yeah, that's a I mean, you see, you try to look at an object that small, even on the ground, 100 miles away. You're not seeing anything.
Yeah, that's what this is what the thoughts that are going through my head right now.
Yeah.
It's that as technology has started to increase to the Joe Blow average consumer person, they're having to make stuff up for us to explain those things.
Yeah.
Because I did a video, the second DVD that I produced for the public that it went out was called The Mount Herman Roswell Connection. And in that video, I've got an 8-minute UFO montage.
Okay.
That was taken from like mainstream news reports and stuff.
Sure.
8 minutes worth of UFO montage footage from all around the world. All of it is depicting glowing orbs. Now, we're not talking like the old 1950s flying saucers here. We're talking about glowing orbs doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
And if we're all honest with ourselves, including NASA, even the stars in the Milky Way and elsewhere that we see are nothing but glowing orbs. That's all they are. All we can see is a glowing orb. So could it be then that the glowing orbs that we see that are fixed up there, like Orion or others, or Pleiades, are the exact same as in their composition, if you will, to the orbs that we're seeing doing all kinds of crazy stuff that we're calling UFOs.
Yeah.
That some of those are just coming a little closer than others, and the rest of them are just up there at some high altitude doing whatever they're doing. Yeah. And now we're told that that's satellites just to give us something to shut us up and don't pay no attention. Don't worry about it. It's satellites.
I absolutely agree with you on that. And we could go down a different road and say they were luminaries and the whole Book of Enoch thing.
Right.
But what I try to tell people is that whatever's up there, I have no doubt it's not us, one. And two, when it comes, we'll use UFO just as a general reference because, it still means the same thing, unidentified flying object. But what I try to tell people is, look, from what I can tell, whatever's flying up there, they're just like cars. Meaning, everyone knows that if they turn on their running lights, you can see them, they get all sparkly and weird. But most of them, like a car works just fine when the headlights are off. And that's why they can really go undetected because they're absolutely silent. They travel at high rates of speed, and you can't see most of them. You cannot see with your naked eye. I'm not kidding you. With night vision, the whole sky changes. Yeah, not only can you see a whole bunch of the star. There's way more stars, but there's so many things moving up there to the point where I was going out pretty much 3 or 4 nights a week for 4 years, and I could set my watch by it. To where, as long as it was, starting to get into the fall or the spring, there was like what I called rush hour, where it'd be like all of a sudden there'd be just like it was almost like a commute, where all of a sudden they were just going through the sky in different paths, and they seemed to be following our highways. They're like using them for markers, and I was going, yep, and this is going to wind down in about 15 more minutes, and now it slows down.
Okay, so I don't mean to interrupt you here, but I'm
no, go ahead.
I'm freaking out because
why?
Because this is really cool. I come from a biblical worldview predominantly, so I'm thinking about this. About Paul says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places.
Yeah.
Okay, so and there's this interesting story in the book of Daniel where Daniel's praying and his answer is delayed because the angel that's coming to bring him the answer is held up fighting with this entity, the Prince of Persia.
Okay.
It's the principality over a nation. And Michael had to show up and help this other entity get through.
Okay.
Because so there's this idea that there are principalities and powers in high places that are monitoring us, that are in charge of certain areas of our life in world power positions, if you will. Mm-hmm. That okay, you just mentioned rush hour. If that's, I just got a pair of night vision goggles myself. I haven't had a chance to use them yet, so I'm cool. I'm really anxious to get out there and start doing some of it.
You'll be amazed.
But what if? Because one of the other questions that people have is, well, what about comments? And we talked about meteor showers earlier.
Sure.
How does that work in an enclosed world?
Yeah.
And I know you were talking from a gamer perspective. You could just kind of introduce those. But what if we're talking about like Chips? Remember the TV show Chips?
Of course. Ponch and John, yeah.
Yeah. What if it's Ponch and John? That they are police officers that make their rounds on a regular basis, and they come through the atmosphere, to
sure.
What if they're just on a circuit?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, again,
sentient beings.
I literally could set my watch by it, and when it happened, it was literally they were using like the top of the hour. And it only happened for about an hour, and when we went to daylight savings time, I checked, and it's weird, because from what I could see, it didn't make any difference. They apparently don't take weekends like we do. It's 7 days a week, and not surprising.
Wow.
But it was weird. It was just like, it was really, I watched it to the point where I was even getting used to it. To where it was like, oh yeah, these groups are going to come. Oh look, another squadron of 10 or 12, and all these fun things would happen. But when I stopped, here's where it gets ironic. I stopped really once I got into the flat Earth because it made more sense to me. Mm-hmm. Because at that point it's like, oh okay, well it's either like you're saying, it's either superintendents, the janitors, the maintenance team, whoever's assisting in this place, that they're up there. And then I was kind of filled with a sense of relaxation and peace. It's like, oh, okay, well, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and I'm not going to worry about it anymore because I know they're always there.
Yeah. Now, in your observations, were you just scanning the sky as a whole, or did you find localized areas, around certain constellations or whatever that piqued your interest?
No, it was the sky as a whole, and it wasn't. No constellations really caught my eye or anything because I was just really tracking directions, like if we were going north, south, northwest, southeast, northwest, northeast, all the compass directions, and trying to see where they were traveling mostly. Most of them tended to be going either north, south, or south, north. Almost directly, which was easy.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, easy to do in Colorado.
Well, but that's what Admiral Byrd said. That he said that when he came back from I think it was high jump.
Yeah,
and he said that we need to be prepared for wars with ships that could traverse north to south, the poles in a matter of hours or minutes or whatever he said.
Yeah. I could see that. It was what was also interesting. What struck me was this may or may not creep you out. Was they were far enough away that in some cases, the reason why they were so easy to spot for me with the night vision was they were almost the same size as stars.
Yeah. Right.
So when they moved, all I had to do was just focus, just stare at a particular spot and wait for stars to increase distance from each other or close in from each other. And that's how I spotted them. But then I thought, and it reminded me of the Spielberg gag that he put into Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they simulated the Big Dipper briefly when they were flying over Devil's Tower. I said, if you're up there and you just throw it in park, no one would ever even know you were there. Yeah. In fact, which made you think, it's like, okay, how many of those things are stars, and can all these things move?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many
There's so many out there.
Yeah, I've been, I live in Dallas, so we only get the big constellations, about all you can see. But you go out, you don't have to drive too far in any direction from here till you get out in the middle of nowhere, and you see just zillions of stars. Yeah. And how would you ever know? Well, that one wasn't there yesterday. Yeah.
In fact, once your eyes adjust. Because the only thing I could recommend to you when you go out there is let your eyes adjust for 20, 30 minutes, because it takes most people don't realize it takes to get your full night vision in. I think it takes over 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But when you finally get your eyes locked in, and granted the Gen 1 binoculars only come at about as high as 5 power. Then when you get to like Gen 2, you can get 10x, but generally those are pretty damn expensive. But when I was looking up there and I'm really locked in to a spot and I wasn't tracking any objects, I'm not kidding when I say this. It was almost like I was looking, and I you guys can quote me on this, because I was saying this way before Flat Earth, but I'd never put it in a video, was that it almost looked like I was looking at a textured ceiling. There was so much, the stars were so deep up there that when I was looking at it, I was going, this is what a popcorn ceiling looks like when the lights are off. When you have just barely any light in the room. That's what it looked like to me. Wow. And it was amazing, the depth and all the funny things. And granted, you're not actually looking through lenses. You're looking through television cameras when you're using night vision. But it's striking. I'll say that. You have no question that there's a lot of stuff happening up now. Now, a lot of people are still going to believe in satellites and say that, oh, well, it's obviously us. And I'm going, no. But these are the same people that say that if they are alien ships, it's all reverse engineered Area 51 stuff.
Right.
And I'm going, no, it's not. There's been too many sightings over hundreds, if not thousands of years. So don't start saying that the Americans have the monopoly on what's flying around the sky.
Oh, yeah. And I had David Stinnett was a guest on my show a few weeks ago. And he's been with MUFON, and he hosts the New Jersey UFO conference there. And, he's a field researcher. And he goes out and investigates sightings and crop circles and all these kind of things. And he was saying, oh, yeah, the vast majority of the sightings that are unexplained or that appear to be legitimate are the orbs.
Yeah.
That everybody's seeing these orbs. And, again, I've got that video that shows these things moving around. So, it could be that this whole satellite idea was just put there to say, okay, Joe Blow can get binoculars and look up now, so we'll just explain it away by these things. But then you watch a video like Brian Mullen put out, and for those who are wondering about that, it's called Balls Out Physics.
Balls Out Physics.
Episode 4, the ISS satellites and the thermosphere.
Yeah.
Need to check that one out. But hey, we got like 10 minutes left, and I definitely want to plug you. You got a book out.
Oh yeah, go figure, right? I had a London publishing company contact me, and she's a convert from what I can tell. The editor, Booglez, Booglez, and she was said, yeah. She goes, I think we could turn this into a book very, very easily, and then follow it up with an audio version. And she goes, you really don't even do much, because if you have the transcripts for the clues, do that, and then we'll add an intro and a special Q&A section, and final instructions. So sure enough, and you hear these things. It's like, oh, will it amount to anything? And I'll be darned if last week she said, all right, we're printing. You should receive it in the mail pretty soon, and did a press release in the whole 9 yards. And here it is, the Flat Earth Clues book, the Flat Earth Clues, The Sky's the Limit. And it's on Amazon right now. They're handling it. They did a Facebook page called Flat Earth Clues. That's on there, and I don't have to really do anything. They took care of all of it. So I'm super psyched. It's my first book. I didn't even know. I was like, oh, I'm an author now.
Well, the books that I have out came out of my blogs.
Oh, cool.
I was just free-form blogging, and in 2011, that's all I did for 2011, just whatever I thought about, I wrote about. And at the end of the year, I said, well, how much did I write? So I kind of just pulled it off blog format and put it into some print format software.
Yeah.
And I saw that I had about 1,000 pages of content. I thought, well, shoot, I should turn these into books. So
nice.
Looks like they just did the same thing with the transcripts from your.
Yeah, that's what they did, and I think their timing really. But what pushed them over the edge, I think, was the the BOB thing.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's like, okay, we got to, if this thing is starting to get hot, we want to get in front of it. So yeah, I'm very grateful to them, and it's I think for me it's great because they also used you can't see it, but they also used a children's illustrator to do all the pictures inside it.
I saw the cover and everything. It looked like what was it, Family Circus?
Yeah. So it's the most non-threatening book in the world. In fact, it looks like it's marketed to children. But you could hand this to anybody, and they'd probably think it was a parody. When they were looking at it, it's like, oh, Flat Earth Clues, this looks kind of cute. And then when you're reading it, by the time you're done, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're going to be looking at Rob's stuff, and then again, you're not going to sleep for a bunch of days and completely freak out and then scare your family because you're going to think that, again, the big thing I try to tell people is like, I don't know why there's this weird disconnect because people will get into Flat Earth. It'll take them a week, and then they'll say they'll go to the family dinner table. And it's like, I'm so excited now. I'm going to try to convince my family in an hour.
Right.
It's like, did you forget that entire week where you were banging your head on the wall thinking this can't be happening? What do you think's going to happen when you tell your family?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was rough during the holidays getting those emails. It's like, I told my family over Thanksgiving and they want to commit me. It's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, Rick Hummer was telling me, he may have told you about it, but he almost got into a fist fight with somebody that was crazy, at some kind of reunion or something he went to.
Yeah. People get really, again, I can't get mad at people that get really, really wrapped up because I get it. I totally have empathy for them because I say, look, I was there, man. I was you. Don't take it out. Don't take it on the messenger. It's the message you got to deal with. Yeah. Which in this case, I believe to be true. So anyway, book audio version just came out. It's going to be translated apparently into French and Spanish.
Wow!
And I'm really, really excited. And I thank you to all the people that have mirrored it because best laid plans. I don't monetize my channel, and so I said, oh yeah, you can take the Flat Earth Clues and put them anywhere, and that's exactly what people did. They just started throwing them all over the place, and I'm sure there were some people that did it, just to get hits on their channel. But good for them. Yeah,
well, cool. So people can just get it on Amazon or any.
Oh yeah. So you can just look it up on Amazon. The audiobook is on. Oh crap, I can't remember. It's a funny name. Audibles or
Audible.
Audible. It's on Audible. And I've got apps. A Flat Earth fan said, "Oh yeah, I'll make some apps for you," and that was iMobilize. And they came along, and so there's a Flat Earth Clues app for both the iPhone and the Android. And that happened a week before the book thing happened. And so I was like, wow, it's really great. What's next? Movie of the week?
Well, don't be surprised. I mean, Hollywood knows how to monetize whatever is trending.
Yeah, if there's a dime to be made, yeah. Watch Leonardo DiCaprio play Admiral Byrd.
Okay, well, did you see? Yeah, right. Did you see Gods of Egypt?
I saw enough of what I wanted to see, which was that opening sequence where they were pulling the sun across
a circular flat Earth disc. Yeah, and the I forget the guy's name, but the director,
the guy that did Dark City.
Yeah, it's the same guy. Where he depicted almost he probably used the same, I don't know. I mean, it looked like.
Yeah, what are the odds? And Dark City was 98.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, and they covered that too. They actually showed that clip where the gods are dragging the sun across a circular flat Earth. It's like you didn't have to do that. No, why would you have to do that? I mean, because people thought it was flat back then. It's like, yeah, but they thought it was flat. You're actually showing it like it literally was flat.
Well, a lot of people were knocking that movie, and I actually enjoyed it. I can go to a movie.
Oh, you actually went and saw it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I could go to a movie if I just want to turn my brain off because my brain's always going a million miles an hour, and I'm researching all the time. So sometimes I just want to shut my brain off and just, enjoy something. It was kind of campy and a little bit cheesy in some parts, but, I kind of enjoyed it. But when that scene came on, I'm going, what?
Oh, you didn't know?
Yeah, I didn't know that was going to be in there. I didn't see.
Oh yeah, yeah. People had sent that to me because of the trailer that came out, or the trailers, and once I saw it, I was going, "Oh man, they are." It just feels like they're pushing it into the consciousness slowly and slow while they're speeding it up, but to the point where now, what are they waiting for? What's the setup? And so that's what I'm waiting for next. I was like, I'm just waiting for somebody to call me. It's like, are you watching the news right now? It's like, why? It's like an alien ship has parked itself next to the edge of the earth.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, where they found the Ark of Gabriel in the post down there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how crazy it's getting these days. Okay, well, we got about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
You've interviewed a lot of people.
You want me to rattle them off real fast?
Yeah, the highlights of the ones that you think people should check out that were most intriguing and compelling.
Okay, I'll do the best I can. So I've done 13 so far. So when I started doing Strange World, I didn't even solicit them. People started coming forward. I said, look, I need people subject matter experts. So the first one was probably one of the best, and that was the United States Navy missile instructor. And all these are in a playlist on YouTube on my channel called Mark K. Sargent, and it's under a section called Testimony Shows. The United States Navy missile instructor confirms flat Earth. That was really great. That was number 21. Then we followed that with a career land surveyor. That's pretty good, but if you're a blue collar guy and you know land surveyors, that's pretty good. United States Navy submarine chief did a really great job on that. The flight instructor out of Iowa that owns his own flight instruction company, he did really, really great. The industrial valve expert that specializes in valves and seals, he tore apart the ISS and said that isn't even possible. Loved that one. The United States Army artillery radar operator, pretty good. International shipping expert, pretty good. Corporate travel agent, also pretty good. Retired U.S. Air Force navigator, excellent. Recommend that one. The Australian intelligence officer, also pretty good. The air traffic controller meets the flight instructor in the flat Earth, probably one of the best. I got more letters saying they love that one than just about any of them. And then last, the one I just did last week was the United States Army master gunner. From a tank standpoint, all the instruments he uses in a tank, and he did a really, really great job. So yeah, 13 subject matter experts so far, and nobody has come out against them. Wow. Nobody has refuted them from a professional or a military standpoint. Where are they? They're not there.
Wow. Did the Army guy deal with the long-range shooter issue that they're always saying they have to adjust for the Coriolis effect and all that?
Oh yeah. They've all said the same thing. They're going, there is no Coriolis effect when they're plugging in their firing solutions. Everybody from the artillery guy to the tank guy to the missile guy to the sniper. Oh, I'm sorry, I left that out, didn't I? One of them I said, oh crap, where did I put that? Or maybe that was in one of the mailbags. I had a United States Marine Corps sniper instructor had sent a statement to me. He goes, look, I taught for 3 years. Coriolis effect isn't even in the manual. I don't know what they're talking about on mainstream news, but we don't use it.
Wow.
So, yeah, they all say the same thing, and nobody's come out on YouTube. Nobody's talked against it.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. Look him up on YouTube. You can just find him through Flat Earth Clues or just Google his name. Thanks, Mark. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. See you next week.